Many people in the life science industry believe that agriculture is less innovative than the pharmaceutical industry. Well, I always say to the contrary, this is far from being true. It's a very much innovation-driven industry. Innovation means that, well, you should be patient, be persistent, and be resilient as an entrepreneur CEO.
Welcome to this week's episode of Leaders on a Mission, where I'm joined by inspiring leaders driven by the impact of creating a healthy and sustainable world. Now, in today's episode, I'm joined by Johan Cardoen, a biotech executive who started his career in 1988 with Plant Genetic Systems, who were the first biotech company in Belgium. Now, since then, Johan's played a really important role in the growth and the evolution of the Belgian biotech ecosystem. And, I know as a board member and advisor to many of the kind of innovative kind of startups, not just in Belgium, but broadly, internationally, as it were. And I've been in touch with Johan for the last few years, and it really is a pleasure, Johan. Thanks. I know we were jesting before about how busy you were with your kind of activities. So really thank you so much for coming on and sharing your time today.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Simon. And thank you for, giving me the opportunity to share my views on some of the questions you may ask.
Excellent. Well, before we come to views and opinions on the marketplace, I suppose, as you look back at your career, right, what do you look back at most fondly with? What really kind of stands out for you when you look back at your career as, standout highlights?
Well, standout highlights, I would say my period as CEO of Crop Design, I consider as one of the highlights of my career, because it goes with young startup companies. I initially joined the company being responsible for business development, and we had 3 CEO changes. Despite being a young company, the company was founded in 1998 by VIB, which I joined later on as managing director. But I came on board as CEO, was appointed as CEO in 2004. And it was quite challenging period for the company as well, because the existing investors had some kind of, lost confidence into the company. And my goal and my objective was to really create options for the company going forward. And that's what we were able to do really in 2 years period of time. So, and it again demonstrates what you can achieve with a strong, committed team as well. So the first thing we did is to make the company less dependent on the financial investors. And the way to do was to accomplish a major deal, which we had 3 offers from 3 of the major agro companies in the industry. And eventually we had a major R&D and license deal with BASF, which brought in 25 million euro upfront, which allowed us to position the company for an IPO. So as a strategic direction going forward. And this was basically the board, we really were planning to bring the company to the stock market in the last week of June 2006. But along along this process, and we had appointed the bankers, a consortium of 3 bankers to help us with the IPO, we were approached by Monsanto to at least explore. We were open for an M&A. Eventually, upon my recommendation, the board decided, let's explore in parallel to the IPO process whether we can do an M&A, but under the following conditions. First of all, we need to work with different bankers and on the IPO process. We need to do this in a very confidential and discreet way, because we do not want that an IPO is being perceived as a failed acquisition. And thirdly, you need to run this process so that it is not in a very fast way, so in 10 weeks, so it does not compromise, going public and the window of the end of June 2006. And that's basically what we did. We ran this process in 10 weeks. We had 3 parties involved in a restricted auction, and it led to quite a successful acquisition. And we announced, we started the process in March 2006, and we announced May 2006 that we signed an agreement, a binding agreement with BASF for the acquisition. And so, again, for me, this was professionally one of the most interesting periods in my career. What it also showed is that if you create options, you can negotiate from a position of strength. So we were all the time sitting on the steering wheel. And it was, on hindsight, very intense, but also a very rewarding period for myself professionally, but also for many colleagues who were involved. And so this is, for me at least, professionally, maybe the highlight of my career.
Great, absolutely. Just one thing you just mentioned there, you mentioned about the 25 million upfront payment, and it's amazing the amount of, when I think about the amount of business development hiring that I've done, or the amount of the challenge companies face in articulating and selling or bringing their technology to market with upfront payment. And there's you with a 25 million payment upfront. Any secrets or tools of the trade in terms of, for any budding small companies that are looking to bring revenues like that in terms of how to go around it?
Well, indeed. Well, I concur with you. That's today, and especially today, it's very difficult. Most of the deals are backloaded, are not front-loaded. But by the time we were discussing with this license and R&D deal with companies such as BASF, and actually we were in discussion with Monsanto, with Syngenta and BASF. We were really in a position that we had developed a very strong trade portfolio, so which was quite a bit validated in the field, in a real crop in the field. So we had, in terms of proof of concept data, strong proof of concept, a portfolio of about, probably 30 trade lead genes, as we call it, which were all very well IP protected. And the fact that, again, we had, parallel discussions ongoing and different parties who submitted competing offers really helped us in striking, at least for us, what was in those days the best deal. Again, the fact that we got substantial amount of money, non-dilutive funding in through this deal, was really, at the same time, was really reassuring to the existing investors that at least what we were doing in the portfolio of trade genes, which we had developed, was of definite interest to the industry, but also it provided a significant validation toward the outside world. And it came back to the same point I mentioned before, is, it's very important for future entrepreneurs or for existing entrepreneurs to create options for the company. And that's a key message which I basically also got when I joined PGS, initially as a scientist, later on as a BD manager. But again, the company was acquired in 1996 for $750 million in those days, which was a major acquisition.
Who
And
acquired it? Was it Aventis? Who hired
it was acquired by Agrivo Hoegst, which later on became Aventis, right? Yeah, after the merger with Rompulan. First of all, a company is never for sale. If you put yourself for sale, it's always some kind of weakness. At least that's my view on that. But you should try to grow and develop your company on the basis of its own strength. But if you are able to create some kind of credible threat to the industry or to some of the companies, you suddenly become attractive as an acquisition target, and that's what you try to do. But again, if the acquisition is your only way out for an exit, because most of the small biotech companies are financed by venture capital, and those funds need to have an exit somewhere. And most of the funds are closed-end funds. They have a typical lifetime of 10 to 12 years max. So by the time they invest in the company, usually after 4, 5, 6 years, they increase the pressure to look for exit opportunities. And sometimes companies are pushed prematurely towards the stock market. That's again, so try to become as independent as possible from your investors. And this means it brings in non-dilutive income, which is today is not so trivial, but that's basically what you should try to do.
Yeah, great. I know we've spoken before about ecosystems, and it's been really impressive the role. You look at the Belgian biotech cluster and the role of VIB, and especially in light of, I see there's a lot of people talking in the UK, about really developing these partnerships and having this cluster, and they're still trying to get their kind of act together in relation to it. So I know Life came out, the technology or the business came out of VIB, but then after the acquisition, you then went to work for VIB to...
Yes, that's right.
So tell us a little bit, because that was obviously a really transformational time, right? There was a lot of growth and development. So just tell us a little bit about what the mandate was and what you ended up creating, with the ecosystem.
Yeah, well, I would say VIB really played in Belgium a major role in developing, growing the ecosystem. And I used to say, well, VIB is some kind of spider in the web. But VIB is a strategic research center, life science focused in Belgium, which was founded not so long ago, in 1996, actually. It was initially, and still is, supported by the government with a mission to really develop, I would say, over the years with a long-term vision, the life science industry and life science ecosystem in Belgium. And as you know, VIB in the first place is a research center, a life science research center, with a mission to really focus on delivering top science. Life sciences, biotech companies are R&D driven, are research driven. So innovative, cutting edge, high quality research is the basis of everything. Without that, there is no really basis to set up or even establish new startup companies. So this is basically how VIB got started. It was some kind of new model. It works in a partnership with existing universities. So VIB employs currently today 1,800 scientists representing 76 nationalities. So it's a very international institute, and we claim at VIB to say VIB does not invest in projects, but they invest in people. And so they recruit people from all over the world, and especially PIs. We have close to 80 research groups headed by a PI. They have to have the potential to belong to the 10% best scientists in their field. So this was the first thing. So VIB as a top research center in life sciences. And then VIB really applied a very professional tech transfer approach, and they established the first company they established is actually a company was NevGen, which in 1997, so 1 year after foundation, followed by Crop Design in 1998 and Ablings in 2001. And in the meantime, all those three companies were acquired. NevGen by Syngenta, Crop Design by BASF, Ablings by Sanofi, and they have really developed a very successful track record in with creation of new startups. Today, they created over all those years 34 startup companies, all well-financed. So this is one of the roles, besides being a research center, is the creation of startups. They are also a partner to many life science companies which are active in the region. They invest incubator space, biotech incubator space, which is state-of-the-art infrastructure, very much adapted to life science companies. They are, in general, I would say they provide general support to the ecosystem. For example, they are founder of 2 international schools. People ask me, why the hell is VIB a founder of international schools? Well, if you wanted to recruit international talent, young people who bring their families with them, you need to create an ecosystem which enables them to bring their families over to Belgium. And that's what VIB did. So they really applied this whole encompassing approach to really turn the area into a very attractive innovation ecosystem. And so today, this combined with the pool of talent, which also many colleagues who worked at VIB found their way into industry, they are a pool of talent as well, makes that VIB has played a major role in growing the ecosystem. In the 80s, we had 2 biotech companies. Today, in Flanders, which is the northern part of Belgium, towards more than 110 R&D-driven life science companies today. And of course, if you look at the ecosystem, all these innovation-driven companies together with, the presence of Johnson. So Johnson & Johnson has a very big R&D site in Belgium, together with Pfizer, together with GSK. This makes some kind of very interesting ecosystem, together with BASF, who has a major R&D site. Syngenta had one, Bayer had one, so makes it into a very attractive ecosystem consisting of young starting companies, more mature developed companies, large multinationals with R&D activities. And it's really a vibrant ecosystem which we have there.
Yeah, and they're great. And also, what's interesting is the real focus on, I know a lot of the technology could be applied to broader life sciences, pharmaceutical, therapeutics, as well as agriculture. But how much of it is agriculture as opposed to non-agriculture?
At VIB?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, VIB is organized in 8 research centers, and only one of them is focusing on agriculture. The Research Center of Plant Systems Biology, which is headed by Dirk Inze, which is one of the, I would say, key opinion leaders in plant science in the world. And today there are 350 scientists active in that center, and they and several startups, and one of them was Crop Design, which came out of that work. but also today we have a company such as Protealis, which is focusing on breeding of protein crops such as soybeans. Afea Bio came out of that research center as well. So they are really a source of innovation, but also they have major partnerships in place with the agro industry all over the world.
Yeah. And Biotalis, AgroSave, which became Biotalis, that also came out here as well, right?
Yes, that came out of VIB as well. And of course, the technology which formed the basis of Biotalis today was, of course, the basis of Ablings, these small domain single chain antibodies coming from llamas.
I know. I love this because they don't, Biotalis don't talk about it on their website, llama, but it's essentially from the saliva of llama, right? These particular single chain antibodies, right?
That's correct. And initially, when the company was founded, the technology was, the business plan was then targeting the application of technology as some kind of innovative formulation technology. So the antibodies would be linked to microcapsules, which were encapsulating active ingredients, agrochemicals, to get a more targeted application of the agrochemical. So again, it has to do with how can we make agriculture more sustainable, right? But it appeared to be quite challenging in terms of application. And then basically we said, well, why cannot the antibodies as such being applied as an active ingredient as such against, for example, fungal targets, which in this way you can neutralize and cause lethality. And that's what happened to be the case. And today, the first candidate product is being submitted in the US for EPA registration as a biological fungicide, primarily against the botrytis, so for application in fruits and vegetables. But as such, this technology platform, the nanobody technology platform, as we call it, has formed the basis of at least 6-7 companies in the meantime.
Absolutely. And tell me, just broadly, when you think of the ecosystem now, when you think of the challenges we're trying to solve in agriculture, whether it be from a sustainability, whether it be from, more bio-based solutions, or whether it be for better traits for yield, if you look over the next 5 or 10 years, where's the greatest need, for innovation, do you think?
I think agriculture worldwide is really facing the challenge that, we are really in transition to make agriculture more sustainable. And of course, in order to achieve that, you need to have a combination of different, I would say, innovations to make that possible. And one of them, of course, is really decrease the environmental load of agrochemicals by moving at least more towards biological crop protection, we have observed over the past years major growth in that area, but still we are facing some challenges, especially in the industry. Biological crop protection, especially those relying on microbial strains, doesn't have such a good reputation because most people think, first of all, it's lack of efficacy and lack of consistent performance in the field. But again, we have seen significant, evolutions there in a positive way, combined with, new breeding technologies to make crops less dependent, for example, on natural resources, for example, on water. It is estimated that 70% of the fresh water on this planet is being used in agriculture. This is no longer sustainable. So, and again, we are facing, year after year, that really climate change is there. So how can we apply breeding and technology to really cope with the challenges which are being caused by climate change? Combinations of different approaches together with, some of the interesting devices which have been developed by precision agriculture, so that you can, in a more applied, targeted way, apply fertilizers, only apply irrigation when crops are being suffering from drought, only apply fertilizers through the application of nitrogen sensors, for example, when the time is there. So this all together, so this combination is all helping to really make this transition possible towards a more sustainable agriculture.
Yeah, you know what, Johan? It seems like there are lots of innovation out there. There are lots of companies doing interesting things, leveraging lots of technologies. Are the challenges more around scaling, commercialization, and actually bringing things through, when you look at the ecosystem?
It is actually, because if you look at the agtech startups company landscape, it's you have tens of companies all over the world which are being active in those areas, but very few of them really manage to really develop towards a self-sustainable company with products on the market and with backed up by a strong product pipeline, but a successfully commercialization of their products. So that still appears to be a challenge for, I would say, most of these young companies. The reason, not so trivial to me. Well, if you talk about biologicals, I mentioned, the perception, at least, about lack of performance. They have definitely a place as a part of an IPM, integrated pest management strategy, which most of the, I would say, companies have to apply. One of the challenges is, of course, it all needs to make economically sense of the cost of goods. Can we produce these, I would say, biological alternative crop protection methods in a sufficiently cheap way? So through fermentation, for example, it's for certain type of biologicals, it seems to be a challenge as well. So we need some more successes, and it's it's still out there. But again, I would say farmers need to have also a change in mindset. Today, probably they will have to be prepared to make some compromises on crop yield in order to adapt and apply those new innovations which are under development. And this may be very difficult from their perspective. And although, in Europe, for example, we have the European Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy, which are all stimulating and fostering the transition of traditional agriculture towards a more sustainable agriculture. We still have, I would say, some work ahead of us. Yeah.
Coming back from the World Agritech a few weeks ago, it really seemed, talking and hearing from a few companies there were real delays in EPA approval for bio-based protection solutions. And I'm curious, it seems that everyone's putting in the same direction. Should the EPA be doing more to get through these cases quicker, or does the ag industry need to be more patient?
Well, I don't think so. The backlog, which many companies experience with regulatory authorities, such as EPA, is a bit frustrating, since everyone is really pledging that agriculture needs innovations, but when it relates to, I would say, approving new innovations for market introduction. It's very frustrating to see that it takes unusually long time to get the approval, to get the necessary approvals, which is due to lack of experienced staff. Reasons why is unclear to me, but it seems to be an inherent problem. And again, on the other hand, governments really all are targeting to make, I would say, agriculture more sustainable. But if the regulatory authorities, which are basically government agencies, do not follow and do not act to make in a diligent way, an expeditious way to make this all possible, it's too bad. It's too bad. And in Europe, we have seen, of course, the whole debate on gene editing, which is still ongoing. Okay, we have now seen recently, hopefully, a decision from European Parliament, which may open up the approval of, exempt gene editing from GMO regulation, which would be definitely a major step forward for European agriculture, because so far Europe can not really reap the benefit of these new technologies such as gene editing, which is, again, although Europe is, as I mentioned, there's a farm to fork strategy and Green Deal. They do not, follow with respect to approving, facilitating, enabling these new innovations, which could help them to make this all possible.
Yeah, absolutely. But final question for me, Johan. Just I know you work with many early stage startup companies as a board advisor. You partner and work with lots of the CEOs from the companies. What key advice have you got for entrepreneurs, CEOs, entrepreneurs that want to scale and grow an innovative, agri-food tech company?
First of all, the ag tech space is a very interesting space to be in. Many people in the life science industry believe that agriculture is less innovative than the pharmaceutical industry. Well, I always say to the contrary, this is far from being true. It's a very much innovation-driven industry. And despite the fact that it is a consolidated industry, but consolidation in this way really fosters innovation, because the major ag companies really want to continuously differentiate themselves from by looking to acquire or to look for the next innovation, which would help them. So it's a very innovation-driven industry. And innovation means that, you should be patient, be persistent, and be resilient as an entrepreneur CEO. So, but again, it's a fun and fast-moving industry to be in. If I look what has been achieved over the past 15 years in terms of new developments, it's really astonishing. My only message is, believe in what you are trying to do, what you are trying to achieve. Be persistent, be agile. You need to be able to, as a good CEO, to take on the company on a journey which may take 10 years, 15 years even. But you should be able to navigate the company, taking along your stakeholders and investors to support you towards a successful venture.
Great stuff. Johan, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the conversation today. So it's been a real privilege. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much, Herman. Thank you.